There we go. Perfect. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Gompers family, Overbrook and Winfield community members. This is Mr. Hudak, an advisor of student council at Gompers School, and we are here to discuss mental health during COVID and during virtual learning. We had our big in-person event today out front of Gompers, celebrating all of the hard work of students, families, staff members, and community members. And we wanted to acknowledge how difficult it's been, but how we've really pulled together as a community to make the best out of it. And our students are still really excelling, even though we're online. I'm going to introduce our moderators in a second. This is a student generated event. So all of the questions, all of the ideas, everything pretty much so came from our student leaders at Gompers. We're so proud of them. But I'll just say mental health has been at the forefront of everything we've been doing on student council this year. Our students are very aware of the adversity and the challenges that this last year has presented. So with that being said, I'm going to be quiet, which is hard for me to do, as everyone on the call will tell you. But I just want to acknowledge the fact again that it is Women's History Month, and we have a bunch of strong, empowered young women and women on the call that are ready to share their truth and their expertise and their experiences for all of you. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to our student moderators. We have Miss Adriana, who is our student council president, and Miss Anissa, who is our vice president. So if you guys want to just very quickly introduce yourselves, and then we will get started with our agenda for today.
Anissa can go first.
Oh, wow. Hi, my name is Anissa Gay, and I am in R2. I am the student council vice president, and that is all.
Okay. My name is Adriana. I'm in 8th grade, and I'm student council president. And yeah.
Perfect. So thank you for those introduction, student leaders. And the first question that we're really going to cover, and this is again to our moderators before we get into the panel and the mental health questions. Why did student council prioritize this virtual event? And again, we've been talking about this all year. Students have been bringing it up. So I just want Anissa and Adriana, you guys to kind of share out what we've been thinking and why this event is really important to us.
I'll go first to answer that question. I feel like going into student council and becoming president, I wanted to make mental health, especially during COVID, my number one priority, only because, especially as a person who experienced it firsthand, like depression and anxiety and all of those different things, I feel like it's very important to spread awareness about it and let it be known that you're not different because you suffer with these things, or you're not strange or weird, that everybody suffers with a time of depression or anxiety or a time of sadness. So I feel like when you put it out there and make it known that a lot of people suffer with it and that a lot of people have it, it's just like it brings us together more as a community, and it also, you can learn to have an understanding on the different side effects and symptoms and stuff. So yeah.
Perfect. Question to Anissa. Why is this important to you and to student council in general?
I thought this was important to me and to student council because, like, with everything that's going on with COVID and stuff, I feel like a lot of more people are being spread out and they're being like put alone, and that might make you feel lonely, or it could cause what Adriana said, anxiety and depression, because like you're not really close to your friends like where you used to be.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that out to our moderators. And at this point, we are going to introduce our panel. So we're going to start off with Miss Kiana. If you just want to introduce yourself really quickly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kiana Schunagel. I am a first-year IDPEL doctoral student at SJU, and I am also a school counselor for a charter school in Philadelphia.
Awesome. Thank you. Shout out to St. Joe's, by the way. They were heavily involved in our event today. Thank you, St. Joe's. At this point, next we have Miss Smith, Gomper's very own Miss Smith.
Good evening, afternoon, everyone. I am Sharonda Smith. I'm the mindfulness teacher at Gompers. I have been at Gompers for 12 years. It is near and dear to my heart, and mindfulness is essential to me, and I'm certified in mindfulness and very excited to be here.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, we have a Gompers alumni on the call. Gompers alumni, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Morley Moore. I am a current student at Kappa High School. I'm an instrumentalist. I play the violin, and I'm really happy to see this and like to be here because I think that mental health is super important. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Morley. And last but not least, we have an 8th grade student, a student council member, Imani. Imani, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Imani Greenberry. My pronouns are they, them. I'm in 8th grade and I enjoy writing.
Perfect. And Imani is going to join Morley at Kappa next year. Shout out Kappa. We got Kappa students in the building. All right. So at this point, our introductions are done. Let's hop right into it. We have a list of questions that were student generated, and I typed them up based on student concerns. So President Adriana is going to ask the first question, and then we will turn it over to the panel. So we have about 10 questions, and we will go from there. Adriana, it's all you.
Okay, so the first question is, in your opinion, what is mental health and why is it important to you? Is it discussed enough in schools and in our community? Whoever wants to go first can go first.
I can go. Yeah. Mental health to me is my personal well-being. And even though it says mental, your physical health and your emotions and things that happen around you, it affects you mentally. So it's intertwined with other things and it affects everything. And it's important to me because it's my taking care of my mental health is what helps me go on about day-to-day things. So I can't just go on and not consider my own personal well-being because I won't be able to get anything done. And that's why it's important to me. And I think during this time, it's definitely mental health is being talked about in schools more often at this time. Not enough, definitely. Probably not directly with the students. A lot of schools are just making assumptions based off of other sources and not directly going to your students and reaching out and trying to make sure that they're comfortable. But it's being talked about a bit more, but it could be a lot better. Yeah.
I ditto everything that Morley said. She couldn't have said it and encapsulized it more perfectly. I do want to emphasize the part of it's not discussed enough in schools and in our community. I think in our community, sometimes mental health is shunned, and it's a thing of, specifically in the African-American community, oh, you'll just get over it. It'll be all right. It's okay. Just deal with it. And when trauma and things begin to happen with us, after a while, it's going to be all right. Just get over it. Doesn't feel okay to us mentally. And we need these coping skills, thus us having mindfulness at Gompers to help really deal with and address some of the things that are going on, especially now during this pandemic.
I agree with both of them. Mental health isn't talked about enough in school, and I feel like people don't tend to take into account students' mental health when it comes to workloads and stuff, because school can be really stressful with the workloads, but we have to keep up so we can get to a good high school and get to a good college. So I feel like taking into account students' mental health and understanding how stressful certain things could be could help a lot. And mental health is really just how you feel. It's just how you see yourself and how you see yourself interacting with others. And it can really pressure on your physical health as well. As someone who suffers from depression and anxiety, sometimes it gets difficult for me to get out of bed and it makes it hard for me to eat. And that's affecting my physical health as well.
I think everyone put it really well. I kind of look at mental health as, how do you deal with the everyday stressors that show up in your life? Like, do you have the coping skills to deal with the stressors? And you know what? It's okay if you don't. But it needs to be talked about more, how to find those coping strategies. And I think everyone said it well. It's not talked about enough. It's definitely talked about more than, when I was in high school. But I don't think it's talked about enough. So I think this panel and I think having this discussion is really important. And I think the questions to come are definitely important. And I am happy to be here to discuss them with you. And thank you for all sharing. I think your answers were great.
Nisa, you want to get us the next question?
Okay. How was the discussion around mental health since the onset of the pandemic?
I think we talked about that a little bit in the last question, but I think it's definitely people are more aware of mental health and well-being, because those who thought, and emphasize the word thought, that mentally they were okay when the pandemic hit, they began to realize that there were some mental things that they may have been struggling with before. So it brought it more to the forefront. And of course, because we are all squares on the screen, oftentimes, more often than not, it made us miss the people that we are used to being around and hanging around and socializing with and interacting with. And of course, less hugs and all those other things that human beings just need, which is a basic need of a human being. So I think people are starting to realize it now. Mindfulness, when I first started just 3 years ago, was not as heard of as it is now. Now it's like a buzzword. Like everywhere you go, it's like mindfulness, mindfulness, mindfulness. And it is a good way to, help deal with things. And I think it's become more prevalent because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And particularly like youth mental health, like before the pandemic, like even like still now, like parents, like if your child says, I think I have like social anxiety, like, I've been really down lately, I would think I might be depressed. You're like, you're not depressed. You better go depress that homework. Like I was just talking to someone about that, and like it's not taken seriously. But I think that now with young people being at home all the time, and like you like witness like what your student does, and like you're seeing like what they do, like you're with them all day, I think it's being like called attention to a bit more. I'm not sure if I agree that it's being handled correctly, but there is a raise of awareness in it. But I'd like to see more of that.
And I can add to that too. I think now with the pandemic, services are just more accessible. I think, they're talked about more only because of the pandemic, which shouldn't have been a factor. There shouldn't have been a big event that caused more services to be available for people. But I think also too, there's a sense of compassion with individuals now with the pandemic. And I've just noticed in my, professional career as a school counselor that just, you have just that compassion, which should have been there again before, but you have that compassion. Some students, some faculty members just need a mental health day, point blank. It's just, everything's really tough right now. So sometimes you just have to have that mental health day, and you also have to have your own. So I think that's also another point that I wanted to just add in.
To jump off that last point about mental health days, I feel like now that it is a lot more digitalized, it's a lot easier to take that mental health day. Sometimes when things get so difficult, it's a lot easier to just turn off the computer and say, okay, today I'm just gonna take some time for myself, take some time to let my thoughts quiet down. And it's a lot easier to do that now that everyone's at home instead of having to call into work or having to make the drive there or stuff like that. Everyone's at home now, so it's a lot easier to take some time for yourself.
Even though I'm a moderator, I'm gonna just say a little bit about that question. I feel like even as a student, I forget that my teachers also suffer with mental health or can have depression and anxiety. So I feel like it's all about understandings. I feel like as a community, we need to learn to have more understandings and compassion for people with depression and anxiety and social anxiety, because it's just like we all have stuff that we deal with on a daily. We all have different stresses. So to be able to understand and have compassion for somebody when they say, "Oh, I just need a little mental health day," is really like, for me, is really like, it's a big thing to me. So yeah. The next question is, what impact has COVID-19 and virtual learning had on the mental health of students, parents, family, and the community at large?
I can jump in. I think the best way to describe it is that it's been tough all around for everyone, for students, parents, families, teachers, healthcare workers, everyone. It's been really, really, really tough just adjusting to a new norm. Changing our routines that we had for a while. We knew like, okay, I had to go to work every day or I had to go to school every day. It was just our routine. And changing that up is just difficult to adjust to. It's almost like that uncertainty. So I think just adjusting is difficult. And also isolation is a big thing. I think burnout is a big thing too, because of separating, work and school. It gets a little difficult to know when to stop because everything's at your home environment. I work from home. I go to class from home. I have like a social life at home. So it's kind of hard to have that balance. So there can be burnout because you can feel like you're just working all day and always on the computer. But yeah, I think it's just very stressful and it's definitely been a big adjustment for everyone.
Yeah, definitely what you were saying about adjustment. I know like some teachers who've been teaching for like 10 or more years, they had like the same routine and they would do like the same methods. And then as soon as they like get online, they're like completely clueless. Like, and like, I don't blame them. If you're teaching for that long, you don't know how to approach this. And I could tell it was like overwhelming for some of my teachers, but it was also like overwhelming for like us students too, because we're not like, that your teachers are trying, but you're not learning the material because they're so used to doing it in person. So it's just like both sides are just like, it's a huge struggle and it's just super frustrating. And it's virtual learning is just really stressful, like especially like jumping in and not knowing what to do. And it being an entirely like completely new experience. Was that everybody?
I literally agree with everything that Kiana said and Maura Lee. I didn't want to repeat myself, so or repeat what they said again. So
I didn't go yet, and I have a point to add. I feel like in terms of grades and stuff, because everything's digitalized, it's a lot easier for students to fall back on work, and which means they're getting in a lot of trouble less, and having lower grades affects people's mental health because grades are such an important thing to people. But it's so easy to just put it off and be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, oh, I'll do it later, and then you don't ever actually do that. I suffer from this too, and it's the issue between needing to have someone breathing down your neck to do the work, but also hating when someone tells you what to do. It's just constant struggle, and you don't want to disappoint anyone, but you don't want to like have to strain yourself to actually get this done.
Oh yeah, I have another comment to add based off of that. That's funny. A lot of people are experiencing that, but like I'm kind of like the complete opposite. Like with like it's really online school for me is just like it's super easy because I'm at home in the morning. Like I know most of the work, so I don't have to worry about them telling me to stop and pause for them to talk. I can just like keep on doing it and I get out of the way. But then when I finish that, I feel like I didn't do anything because I'm not in person. Like I'm in my bedroom and just like on my laptop for a few hours and then it's done and I don't feel like I got anything done and I don't feel productive. I feel like I should like do a lot more even though I feel like I already like did everything I had to do. I just feel like I have to be doing a lot at once. And then it's either like I feel guilty for doing nothing or I'm taking on way more than I can. So it's really hard to find that balance online when you're at home and in your room and you feel like you're not doing enough.
Morally, teachers feel the same way. We concur. Adults feel the same way. We find ourselves doing way more than we thought virtually because you feel like you can't go. There are days that I'm on after work. I'm on 2 meetings, one on my phone, one on my laptop, because people think I can because you're home and you don't have anything else to do. So we feel the same thing that you feel.
Okay. It is common to experience high levels of distress and discomfort during times of uncertainty. How do you cope with strong emotions?
I'll answer that. First thing I have to do is acknowledge that strong emotion. Like I think sometimes people ignore the strong emotion and then it comes back up and it creeps back up on you. And you wonder where you begin to wonder, where did this come from? Like you lash out at someone who didn't do anything to you because you already had an emotion that you didn't deal with. So for me, I have learned through mindfulness to really acknowledge that emotion. Like this is something that is happening in my body. And if I had to go through the process, I can of acknowledging where I'm feeling it in my body. Is it in my heart? Is it in my stomach? Where am I feeling this emotion? And somehow figuring out a way, how am I going to express this emotion? Because my first, and that's after my deep breathing, because my first thing, if I'm really angry, is to attack, and it's not going to solve anything. So I address the emotion. I figure out where it's happening in my body. I do my deep breathing to calm my body down and figure out how I'm going to deal with that emotion. And it's easier said than done. But that's how I try to cope with even strong emotions. And then I try to think of something that will, once I do my best to deal with it, it's something that'll bring joy to me, which for me is music, which helps with that emotion. Yeah, so that's what I do to cope with strong emotions.
I can add on that too. Going off that, it's almost like leaning into those feelings of discomfort. It's so easy to shy away from that anxiety because it's something you don't want to feel. You know, it's getting you all worked up. But sometimes leaning into it, learning about it is just important, and then finding ways to cope. And it's going to look different for every single person. No two people are going to have the same strategies that work. So I like listening to music too, but it's not my number one thing. I had to try, a bunch of different things to see what works for me. So now with COVID, I've had to, switch around some of my techniques because I like to go to like live concerts when I, have anxiety. Like I like to go let off some steam and go to concerts, or I like to, be outside and around people. And I can't do that right now. So I had to try some new techniques with coping. So I've, gone on walks. I've started to like read a book or watch a show, something to like help me, but that doesn't always work for everyone. So it takes time to find out what works for you.
Yeah. I find that during being alone and like thinking to myself all of the time, my emotions have become like a lot harder to identify. They feel like more complex because I'm just like thinking and thinking. It can be like the most like simplest emotion or like the simplest cause, but like it just builds up and then you can't find where it's coming from. So it can take a lot of time, but sometimes I have like a few like temporary coping mechanisms. A lot aren't very like that's why I agree with like what Ms. Sims said, like tracing back to like the source of it, because everything else I do is usually temporary, and trying to find like longer term things, like figuring out where this is coming from, how you can solve this issue is really helpful. But music, it's a great de-stressor. Violin stresses me out, so I play piano instead to calm down. I listen to podcasts sometimes, and I just like stretch while I listen to podcasts, so I like have something in my ear while I'm doing that. It's really helpful for me to calm down.
My coping mechanisms include writing. I like to pour my emotions and feelings and thoughts out on paper or onto a Google Doc and post it. Just writing small stories helps me express how I feel. But I would be completely honest with y'all, most of the time, I do not cope with my issues and I completely ignore them.
And we all know that that's not a good thing, right, Imani?
It hasn't backfired yet.
Well, and that's why we are all here to learn new coping mechanisms from everyone on the call.
Because from the adult perspective, even at this age, this sounds a little crazy to say, but something that you don't deal with now, you might get my age and it creeps back up. So you want to at some point begin to do, and it'll creep up in the weirdest way. And you're like, where's that coming from? And there you have it.
Well, and that's one of the things that's so important with this panel too, right? Is that I mean, we have some adults and some high school students on the call, but as you get older, the stressors and the distress tends to increase, right? Because as you get older, you have more responsibilities, you have more things on your plate that you need to deal with. So talking about these things now and working on your coping mechanisms as you're younger will help you when you get into high school and into college and when you get your first job and you have a family and all of these things, right? So
yes, years from now, there are things that pop up for me now because I didn't have this panel and then I didn't have the coping skills and I didn't know. And I'm like, where is this coming from? And when I stream back and I really look back and take a hard look at it, it was something that happened in 8th grade or 9th grade or 10th grade that I just, I'm just not going to deal with it. It worked for me so far. And then I'm 25. I'm not really 25, but I'm the age that I am. And it came back to haunt me. And that's why I love teaching what I teach. And that's why I think this is great and so important, because we think it's not going to be a thing until it's a thing as we get older.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Adriana, I think we're ready for the next one.
Okay. The next question is, what is one of the most challenging parts of this pandemic has been the lack of human interaction? How do you communicate effectively with others and maintain relationships?
This is a tough one, y'all. This is a tough one.
I could jump in. Zoom, FaceTime has probably been one of my go-tos right now. And the biggest thing is just, reaching out. I know sometimes it can be like, oh, a month went by and you didn't reach out, but I try and actively reach out to family members or friends through text message, phone call, FaceTime. Hey, how are you doing? That's, it's not the same as in person. Maybe we can have some socially distanced events, where we could see people, but I think, technology is a great thing. I know, like I said, we have school online, work online, everything online. So it's tough, to build those relationships online, but it's also a way, face to face, you can see each other. And then there's also, you can have game night online, and I know you can watch a movie, I think, through online. So it's not the same as being with the people you care about and you love, but that's just a way I've been using technology to kind of help me get through this tough time and stay connected to the ones I care about.
I've tried the same thing. I'll be honest with you, Kiana, it doesn't work for me. It really doesn't work because some people are like this. I'm an energy person. and it's hard to get energy when you're a square on the screen. So it's been really tough. So I do those things to compensate, but as you said, it's not the same.
Yeah, I find that like lacking not being around people. It just bums me because I feel like around this time I should be making like a lot of memories, and like I should like I can have like great times to look back on. It's just like I'm afraid like I won't have a lot of those, but like to like supplement for that, I FaceTime people often. Like I play Minecraft with some of my friends to be some kind of end game hangout. So like that's a thing I've been doing, watching movies together. Like yeah, some of those things. It's not the same, but it's better than nothing. And instead of just I don't know, and like Animal Crossing, it's kind of like a real world kind of game, really. So like playing games on there together while you're on the phone with friends, that's been helpful for me.
I have nothing to add.
All right, yeah, and again, what I hear everybody saying is it's not easy, right? It has not been easy for anybody, especially like with family members and really close friends. But you know, we're doing our best. We're using technology well. I think it's important too to point out not to get too wrapped up in technology, right? So like I feel like sometimes we get or some of us are getting overly wrapped up in technology, and that's not a good thing either, right? So kind of that balance. And I agree with Miss Kiana, making sure that, you know, we reach out to people, right? Because other people are struggling too. So to expect them to always reach out to us isn't necessarily the best thing to do either, right? They might be struggling too. So to make sure that, you know, we're reaching out to the people that we really care about. All right, great.
To your point, Mr. Hudak, before I forget this, it's okay. I think it's okay to reach out also because some people think it's not okay that they're not okay. And it's good to reach out to people so that they also know, like, I'm not in this alone. And like you're thinking I'm not okay, and they're fine, but I'm not okay. But if you reach out to them, they may be in the same space that you're in.
Can I jump on that point really quick? I think as a person who struggles with depression and has like these depressive episodes where it's just like hard to do everything, like to get out of bed, to do like your basic everyday needs, I feel like it's really good to have friends who do understand and who do understand what you're going through. Because for me, a phone call just to say, hey, like I'm proud of you for at least like doing this or doing that or getting on your Zoom today. Like, I'm really proud of you and I love you. I feel like those are very important to me because it makes me feel like, okay, like somebody does see my progress and somebody does see the improvement that I'm doing to try and get better and get out of this slump that I have been in for a while. So, yeah.
Great point. The El Presidente makes another great point. All right. Anissa, I think you're up next.
In your opinion, are mental and physical health linked? Can you have one without the other? Why or why not?
I feel like we covered this in the first question.
I think we did. They're definitely linked because I think Imani said it or Morley. I can't remember who said it, but I think when your mental health isn't right, and we've learned this through this process of the pandemic, especially, it affects your physical health. I think Adriana alluded to it with, I don't want to get out of bed. Maybe you feel aches and pains when there really isn't an ache or pain going on because your mental health isn't there. Or where it should be at that moment. So I think it definitely is linked. And I don't believe in my heart of hearts that you can have one without the other. Even if you are an athlete, one of the things that they talk a lot about is having your mental health right, and it impacts how you perform if you're an athlete. Even if you are a
7 8 8 1 3 2 6.
Even if you're an artist, as an artist, whether it's music, singing, whatever it is that you do, one of the things that a lot of musicians do is get their mental health right before they go on stage and perform. So I don't believe that one can exist without the other. Even though we try society-wise to function with our physical health and then our mental health, it comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, I definitely do think that they're linked. During like in the summer during quarantine, like I'd be in bed like all day, and also like I just feel so like tired, and I like trace back about something I learned in like my health class the year before that. We learned about like dopamine, which is like the happy chemicals, and endorphins that relieve like pain and stress. And like I just started working out and I started exercising more to like get like my blood pumping, or like to help me like lift my spirits, and it was really helpful. So I think that is really important. And not even just like exercising, just making sure like you're eating proper meals every day and making sure you're getting enough sleep and not sleeping too much. It can really affect how you're feeling. If you need to figure out like what it's like, I realized some foods that I eat make me feel tired and I don't want to like continue to do anything. So just like making like habits and keeping track of those things can really help with your mood and help you like complete everyday tasks.
And I'll just say too, before we move on to the next question, when you feel sick, or if you break your arm, or if you have other health issues going on, what do? You go to the doctor, right? You go to the doctor and you get medicine, or you get physical therapy, or you get treatment to resolve that issue. So it's so interesting that we have that idea of healthcare and physical health, but we don't do the same thing when we're struggling mentally, right? Well, if I'm having mental struggles, why do more people not go see a therapist, or why do more people not go see a counselor? And the fact that it's okay to do that, right? So I think it's super, super important that as much as we identify and address physical health issues, we do the same thing with mental health. And I think everybody with this question was super spot on. So thank you. Adriana, you're up.
Oh, okay. To go off of Hudak's point about like the not going to therapists and counselors, I feel like a lot of people don't because like what Miss Smith said earlier, like in the Black community, it's just like, oh, you're crazy, oh, you're this, or oh, you're that, or you're fine. Like, you're not, or like especially for younger kids, it's like, oh, you're not an adult, you don't have a job, you don't do this, you don't do that. So it's just like, I feel like a lot of times people don't get therapists and counselors because they feel like, oh, I just need this because I'm crazy, or I only need to go to a therapist. Only crazy people do that. It's just like, I feel like as a person in the Black community, I feel like we should be more acceptance and make people know like, hey, it's okay to go to a therapist and seek help for mental needs, and especially when your mental health is taking over on your physical health. So yeah. The next question is it easy to check out and shut down in isolation? How do you increase productivity and positivity?
I'll start. What I do, I can keep a routine. Even though I am physically not walking out of my door, I still get up at the same time that I'm supposed to get up to go to work, still take a shower, even and brush my teeth and wash my face and do all of those things. And I do it because it creates a sense of normalcy for me. And that was what I was doing for all these years, getting up, taking a shower, brushing my teeth, washing my face. So I do that even if I'm just going to sit on a screen. And I think that increases my productivity, doing something every day that I enjoy. I think Kiana alluded to it. Whatever it is, for me, it's music. I'll be honest with you. I had a slump about a month ago, and I could not figure out what I was feeling deep down inside. I just couldn't figure it out. And I realized for a week or two, I just wasn't listening to music. And it wasn't that deep because music is my thing. It was and as deep, but it put me in this, was sending me down a rabbit hole, and I couldn't figure out why. Something that I enjoyed doing, I wasn't doing. So what kept me positive was doing at least one thing that I enjoy. For you, if it's walking, if it's singing, good, bad, or indifferent, if it's dancing, if it's calling your friends and laughing and joking, that can increase your productivity and foster some positivity from you. Whatever it might be, if it's drawing, even if you're not an artist, if it's drawing a bad picture that you can laugh at later, whatever it might be. And if you can't figure out what that is, because some people, we say that, but people are like, well, I don't know what it is that brings me positivity. This is the perfect time to work on it and uncover what it is that brings that positive energy to you.
Yeah, that was worded really well. Like with the thing with music and how you were just like not listening to music for a week. It's so easy for me to forget my coping mechanisms. Like I could do them all the time, but when I need it the most, I just completely forget about it. I'm just like, why is it so hard this time? And then I just remember, and then it's just like it's there for me. But in the beginning of quarantine, I was just like, I thought I had to do everything at once, and I was just in my bedroom, and I thought I have time, so I wrote an entire log of what I should do every single day. When I tell you, for like each hour in a day, it was so bad and it was impossible to tackle. So what I do now, I just like make sure that like I do necessary tasks, and I put like a time for like this. So same thing, like showering, making sure I shower before bed, brushing my teeth, washing my face in the morning. I reserve like an hour or two of time for my practice, and it's all spaced out. So I'm not taking it all on at once. And I can just adjust my schedule, and it's really flexible. So it's a matter of, just because you're at home and you feel like you're doing nothing, don't try and do I shouldn't try and do everything at once. So space it out. And that's been helpful for me in increasing my productivity. And I feel a lot more accomplished when I plan 2 or 3 tasks, and I finish them, and then I start new ones the next day instead of having like everything back to back at once.
Yeah, and following up on that is, for me, it's just staying in the present. I try and focus on the task at hand. I might have 5 papers to write or stuff to look at work or meetings to go to, but if I'm in a meeting at that given moment, or if I'm in class, I'm focused on that specific task. So that's something that's been helping me, because anxiety will start having, my mind running everywhere. But to feel more productive, to feel more positive, I try and focus on one given task and focus on the present moment, and see what I can do in this moment to help my anxiety, or to just make myself more productive and feel better and positive.
I agree with everyone else. I literally can't put it better.
I do want to mention what parents can do, because I don't want to make an assumption that I'm the only parent on the panel. So as a parent, what parents can do is be there and be present with their children, and zero in and pay attention, because I think the assumption is you're home and I feel your energy at home, but am I having a conversation with you? Am I checking in and making sure that you are okay? So me, as an active parent of a senior in high school, which this has been a trying year for especially seniors who are supposed to graduate, and all these awesome things are supposed to be popping off right now, and they just aren't. So having the ability as a parent to just check in and say, and not just the, are you okay? I've been making it a priority to have dinner together. Something I really wasn't doing before, because we were all over the place. And now we have no reason but to have dinner together. And just saying, do you want to take a drive? Do you want to take a walk? Just check in. That's our way of checking in. And I'm not asking how you doing and getting all in your business, but Just, are you okay? By not saying those words, but let's just go. And making sure you come out of your rooms, doing that extraction of out of your room. Everyone's nodding your head, girls. I think, yeah.
And just to add on before we move to our last question, in particular with parents, for all our parents on the call, when your child tells you something, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm stressed out, I mean, they're not just, it takes a lot of courage to come out and say that, number one, to admit that there is struggling going on, to admit that everything's not okay. So, I mean, the first step is listening, right? Like, listen to them, hear what they're saying. And even if it is an excuse, which that's the last thing we want you to think about, but even if that student is trying to make an excuse, there's probably something deeper that's going on, that they're bringing that up to you in the first place, that they need that attention, that love. They need to just sit down and have a conversation, and they need your help, right? So just the number one thing I can say, along with Miss Smith, is just listen, and try to listen even a little bit more closely. And then again, I just want to bring up the social media piece. With this question, I feel like with the uprisings in our community and across the country with COVID, it's just been one thing after another. And yes, we need to be active and we need to stand up for what we believe in. But sometimes it's good to just shut the news off and shut the social media off for a couple of days instead of digesting that constantly, right? Constantly. So sometimes it's a good thing to just shut the social media off for a couple of days. And again, with what everybody's saying, just to focus on, what you love doing and setting that time aside to do that.
Two things, Mr. Huda. One thing is, I think Ms. Taratsky has her hand up. I'm not sure. But the second thing is, you mentioned something about social media, and it brought me to another point. During this entire pandemic, know what your stressors are. Know what your stressors are. For me, and my stressor may not be Mr. Hudak's stressor or more Lee's stressor. My stressor is social media. I'm not being old when I'm not on social media. It's because it stresses me out. Why? Is a laundry list, and I can tell you it'll take me 5 hours to explain it all to you, but I know that's my stressor. And if you're already stressed, to do something like get on social media to add to your stress is going to do the obvious, give you more stress. So one of the things during this time, and even now until forever, recognize and know what your stressors are. And just because other people like, oh, you got to be on social media, and like he said, sometimes you just got to shut it down if social media is your stressor. You're not obligated to it. It doesn't owe you anything, and you don't owe it anything.
And again, if you want to watch furry cat or kitten videos, or whatever, or you want to watch TikTok and get some laughs, so technology is a great thing, right? It's a beautiful thing, and sometimes it can be really beneficial. But if we get too focused into it, that's where it can be, become problematic. So if the moderators don't mind, just to wrap things up, because we have about 5 minutes and I want to honor everybody's time, I will ask the last question. Are there any, just if we could hear from each panelist, any last words of advice or encouragement, whether, it's for students, for families and parents, for teachers, just for community members in general? What's if you could say one thing to any of those groups of people about mental health, what would it be?
I'll go first because it's real quick. Be present. Don't worry about what happened in the past. You can't change it. It happened. The future, you can plan for it, but we can't really predict it. But be present. Right now, we are in a panel discussion, discussing mental health and having a great discussion. And if you stay right here in this present moment instead of on your phone, you will benefit more, and your brain will be more relaxed, and you will feel better.
I can go next. It's okay to not be okay. And, everyone out there, all workers and students, parents, families, everyone, you're doing great. Sometimes we don't hear that enough, but everyone is doing an awesome job getting through this. It takes everyone to, come together through this tough time. So just, a big thumbs up to everyone. Keep pushing and keep doing your thing. And if you need help, reach out to people. We all care. There's always someone out there that's willing to listen. So reach out. Definitely reach out.
I'd say really prioritize and figure out what really matters. It's really easy to just think about everything, just take it little by little and figure out what's most important to you. Don't think about your teacher needs this in by this time, because I'm sure they'll your self-care and your mental health matters the most. So make sure you have your priorities straight, and it's not, your priorities they're not made for someone else, but for yourself.
Yeah, and it's always okay to take time for yourself. It doesn't make you a bad person to just say no, and you don't always need a reason to just say no. If you don't want to do something with someone, you don't want to go out and talk to someone, you don't need a reason to just not do that. You can take some time for yourself, and that's all right. It's okay just to want to be alone.
So, if everybody on the call could clap it up for our panelists. Miss Kiana, Miss Smith, Maura Lee, and Imani, and clap it up for our moderators, El Presidente Adriana and Vice President Anissa. Y'all were super dope. I'm super excited to post this on YouTube so that everybody in our Gompers community, but in the city, can kind of, hear your guys' thoughts, because everyone is going through this. If you guys take anything away from this, we're all going through it. You guys are the first students to go through this in over 100 years. So it has not been easy, and we are proud of each and every one of you. So thank you again to everybody so much for being here and taking the time. It was an amazing discussion. Miss President, do you have anything to say to close out our meeting for today?
You guys were amazing, and answered the question.
You're breaking up a little bit, Adriana.
Great.
Yes, I think Miss Foster transferred her internet to Adriana, I think is what happened for the second time today. Yep. But anyway, thank you everybody again for being here. Everybody have a great night and a great weekend, and look out for our video on IG and on Twitter. It will be posted in probably tomorrow. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Bye, guys.
What's the @ on Instagram?
The @ on Instagram is @Gompers_cares.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss you, Maura.
Miss you too. Bye.
Miss all of you. See ya.
Later.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.